dress properly and over prepare, I would say, in terms of over gear. Make sure you have spares, spare batteries, spare clothing, spare gloves, spare socks, spare everything, you know, extra everything, because in winter things get wet, things go wrong, and when they do, you need to be prepared, basically. Winter kayaking and its challenges. Well, those who know me know that winter is a time of year where I really love kayaking, actually. It's beautiful. You have snow and ice and often quite clear air and skies, and beautiful winter landscapes sometimes for paddling. And you often have the advantage of having the waters all to yourself, or yourself and your buddies, because there aren't typically many boats around, and you might even be able to traverse large stretches of water that would in summer be infested with boats. However, winter kayaking also comes with its challenges. So I thought I'd talk about these a little bit today. You might think that the first challenge, the obvious challenge of winter kayaking, is the cold, the temperatures, but I would actually say that for many kayakers it's not. It's actually a matter of access, because for many of us, at least in the northern hemisphere, the simple step of getting to the water might not be that easy. It simply comes from the fact that obviously the water freezes over. So in many places you might not be able to get to the water due to the ice, and many locations that would otherwise be open to you are really not. In this case, well, it's possible due to this extension out into the water here, but without it, you know, this location wouldn't be accessible. So that's the first thing, and it can actually be quite tricky. I know paddlers who really can't get anywhere on the water near where they live because simply everything is frozen over. But if you're lucky enough to be in a location where you have some access points to the water, then at least that's, you know, that's a positive. Here in Stockholm, where I live, you can still get out on the water all year long, but you have to choose your spots, and many classic paddle locations in the city or around the city, many launch spots simply aren't available. So that's the first challenge of winter kayaking, obviously. Now that we mentioned that, obviously, yes, the cold is a major challenge, which means you need to be properly protected, you need to be properly dressed, you need to be wearing a dry suit, really, in full winter temperatures. And more on that is available in a couple of safety videos that I made previously, both on how to dress while winter kayaking and how to stay safe and comfortable in general. So I'll leave some links to that later at the end of the video, so feel free to check that out. But well, what's tricky about winter kayaking? What's different? What's to expect? Well, when it comes to paddling in winter, first of all, just again, getting to the water, everything is more complicated because you have so much gear basically compared to a warm summer paddle, where you might need basically your kayak, your PFD, your paddle, and a phone in a waterproof pouch, and you're basically fine if you're going for an easy paddle. But in winter, well, you need to be prepared for that you might end up in the water, you might capsize, or something might happen, you might fall into the water even from land, and that means obviously, as always, you need to have spare clothes, and in winter that's much more extensive. Right now, for example, it's about -8 degrees Celsius, which is not at all as cold as some parts in the country that actually have -30 or even lower temperatures right now. But even -8 degrees is definitely not a temperature that will be particularly comfortable or safe if I were to fall into the water and I'm not properly protected. So I need to bring a lot of spare change clothes with me. I need to be able to warm myself up if I get cold over time. So I need to stay warm. Sure, that means a lot of extra gear. But it also means that I need the full safety gear with me, obviously a paddle float, a bilge pump, all this stuff. I need ice picks if I'm around ice. I need to be able to handle the cold in many ways, and batteries and things like this will be working less well. So I need to make sure everything is charged, etc, etc, etc. But once out there on the water, then all of a sudden we're talking about maybe freezing temperatures. And in freezing temperatures, everything gets more tricky. Everything is more slippery, everything is cold and uncomfortable. And of course, if you are properly dressed, a winter paddle can be beautiful and quite warm, generally speaking, if you're properly dressed. I'm actually more concerned sometimes while paddling about overheating while kayaking in winter, because I'm properly dressed, rather than being cold. The exception perhaps, as right now there's a little bit of a breeze coming, and then the face is vulnerable to that wind. So you might want to have protection for your face. You might want to have a neoprene hood on in case you were to actually roll your kayak or end up in the water, to mitigate that cold shock, or just to stay warm. But in all cases, everything is more complicated. Things freeze. Things don't work as well as you would expect them to. You'll have ice on your kayak. Everything gets more slippery. If you actually were to end up in the water, things are much more difficult in terms of that getting onto a slippery kayak. That is much trickier. You need to have practiced that. You need to have deck lines and such set up so that you know how to get back into your kayak, even if everything is really hard to get hold of. But I mean, you might have a bilge pump that actually freezes and doesn't work particularly well. You might have a paddle that's multi-part that freezes and won't come apart once you're back on land and try to take it apart when you're packing down, etc, etc. Well, basically everything takes longer, and with all that snow, and sometimes if it's not really freezing but just below the freezing point, you know, you might end up with everything basically being wet and cold, and you know, snow and moisture gets everywhere. That's also something that makes things a little bit less comfortable. All of that, of course, can be handled by proper gear, etc. And you need to have reinforcement clothes for when you're on land, and things are not as comfy anymore, as you know, you'll stay warm while paddling, while you're energetic and paddling. Everything is fine and you're warm and nice, but once on land and that wind sets in and you're standing around and packing down your gear, that's when things are going to be cold. So obviously you want to have reinforcement clothes with you. I think one factor many paddlers will recognize from winter kayaking or winter paddling on a stand-up paddleboard or whatever is that your extremities are really vulnerable in terms of temperature. Your hands, you know, freezing hands, cold feet, that is definitely some part of the experience that one wants to mitigate and avoid. It's kind of eventually, regardless of your setup, there will be moments during winter kayaking where you're really uncomfortable in terms of freezing hands and whatnot. So yeah, dress properly, prepare for that, bring proper gloves, and again, reinforcement clothes for when on land. Because if you're geared up wrong, you know, that can be really miserable. I would say the hands are really where it gets trickiest, because many times, even if you're properly geared up, there are moments where dexterity wise with your paddling gloves you might not really be able to use your hands the way that you would like to. You know, working a phone or handling some small, you know, you need to do something with your hands that requires more dexterity, meaning you have to take your hands out of the gloves. Then yeah, it can be really miserable if things are really cold, if the air is really cold. So the hands are definitely a weak point, and that's something that you need to plan for and make sure you're properly dressed and have ways to warm up those hands, as needed. So having that hot water bottle with you. If you have neoprene gloves, you could actually pour some hot water into your gloves, warming them up, and thus making it easier to get the temperature of your fingers up. So yeah, that's a weak point. Things are definitely trickier. You need to be looking out for ice, as we said. And the ice that you find might not only be a problem, obviously, when you're trying to get out onto the water, but you would have ice floating around in the water. You might have ice that actually isn't visible under the surface that much, big chunks of ice. And you might have ice that actually moves while you're paddling. So ice sheets that are moving and floating around, and while you're out paddling, when you get back, conditions might have changed. So you might actually not be able to get back even to the spot where you started, because now there's ice there. So there are a lot of things to look out for. And generally, I would say, again, kayaking in winter is awesome. I mean, it's so much fun, it's beautiful, and with the proper gear, it can be a fantastic experience. But everything is more cumbersome in the sense of more gear, more stuff to pack into the kayak, out of the kayak, more, you need to scrape ice off your kayak maybe. You need so much more clothing, and everything is so much more uncomfortable if it's really cold and windy and such. So again, proper gear. Again, proper gear will mitigate that, but it does take planning. When you have water temperatures close to the freezing point, then basically that's lethal. So obviously these are dangerous conditions, and you need to know what you're doing. You need to know what the risks are. You need to read up beforehand. You need to talk to people who actually know this, and you need to understand the risks that are out there. So ice, currents, wind, whatever goes on out there, everything is more dangerous in winter conditions. But if you're paddling safely, if you know what you're doing, if you're properly trained, you know how to get back into your kayak. If you capsize, you have the right gear, you've practiced in winter conditions, you know that your drysuit, etc., your setup is set up so that you're warm enough even if you're in the water. You have the right safety gear, etc. In that case, winter kayaking is awesome, as we said, but it really does take planning. I mean, you don't want to go out paddling not having checked the weather report, and all of a sudden you're caught in severe winds and really difficult conditions. You want to know what you're getting yourself into. You want to make sure that people on land perhaps know that you're going out paddling, when you're going to be back, at which time, where you're paddling, etc. You need to make sure that your phone works and you have a battery charger that will work when that battery inevitably goes low. So you need to be prepared for a lot of scenarios. So yeah, everything is more tricky, and there are more risks. I mean, even on land, and actually getting back onto land or getting out into the kayak, that's a risk in and of itself, because you obviously have the slippery surfaces with ice or whatnot, and you might actually fall and hurt yourself. So definitely something to look out for when getting back out of your kayak or into your kayak while winter paddling. People also ask me sometimes about winter kayaking in different fashions. Is this safe? I'm not sure if what I'm doing is safe. And the thing is, if you don't know, if you're not sure about whether what you're doing is safe enough, it probably isn't. If you don't know, if you're not confident enough in your ability to handle a certain situation, it probably means that you aren't sufficiently prepared. So be cautious and be prepared in case things go wrong. Then if you have a folding or an inflatable kayak that requires more of setup, that definitely is more cumbersome in winter as well, because again, everything is cold. It might be a little bit more uncomfortable, but the material is also often stiffer. So if you have an inflatable kayak that folds, then things will be trickier definitely to pack back into the bag oftentimes. It will take a bit longer, it will be a bit more cumbersome. So in winter, you know, I would say more time is always needed to plan for. You know, you need typically, unless you have your kayak very easily set up in a location where, you know, you can easily get to the water, maybe you actually have access to water from your home and you can just get into the water and out paddling, and you have a hardshell kayak or a kayak that's ready to go, that's easy. But if you're traveling by car or public transport or whatever, you're getting into your kayak and transporting it to the location, and you're getting all that gear with you, well, it's going to be trickier. And again, you need so much stuff. You need so much equipment. I actually managed to get to Norway with my inflatable kayak in a backpack, actually on my back, with all my winter gear and whatnot. And you know, I made it to Karlstad in Sweden from Stockholm, and to Oslo, Norway, by train and with all the transport that comes with it. Very heavy actually. It was no fun at the end of the day to carry everything back after having paddled in 2 cities and traveled between 3 cities on the first day. But you know, it works. But it takes, again, longer, and you need to make sure that you have stuff with you. So make sure that packing checklist is in order, because you don't want to be out there in cold weather and realize that you forgot those extra gloves, or, you know, you don't really have, you know, your headwear got wet and you don't have a spare, or you don't have those spare batteries, or, you know, your clothing isn't as warm as you thought it would be, or you forgot those ice picks, or you actually forgot something else that's important. That, you know, everything has more consequences in winter, so you need to take a little bit of time to plan and make sure that that winter paddle is safe and you got all the gear with you. It's simply, you know, it takes a little bit more planning. But again, once you're out there, it's really rewarding. It's so much fun. It's so beautiful. And it's an experience that is unlike any other time of the year. I would say, if you are in a snow landscape, if you are in a location in the world where you get snow, especially, then it's absolutely fantastically beautiful sometimes. So it's well worth the effort. It does require more planning ahead, more risk awareness, more gear, more investment in the right gear, and a bit of experience. But once you're there, you know, it is awesome. So in summary, a couple of things to think about. Well, yeah, research your launch spots and check those weather reports, so you know if there's going to be wind, etc. Be a little bit aware, keep an eye out for ice that might be moving in the water. Who knows, it might actually move to block you on part of your paddle. And bring the proper safety gear with you. Remember ice picks if there's ice in the water, so you can actually climb up onto the ice if you need to. If you're in the water, if you've capsized and there are ice sheets, you need to get out of the water, but there is ice in the way. And of course, you know, dress properly and over prepare, I would say, in terms of over gear. Make sure you have spares, spare batteries, spare clothing, spare gloves, spare socks, spare everything, you know, extra everything, because in winter things get wet, things go wrong, and when they do, you need to be prepared. Basically everything, you know, just a case of spare gloves. I mean, you need gloves that are warm as well when you're back on land. And if your spare gloves get wet, I mean, you need another pair, a third pair maybe. And I've been there many times and been very happy that I actually had the right gear with me. So yeah, over prepare, over gear, extra everything, and be safe. Paddle with others if you can, and take a serious look at the map before you go out. If you're going for a longer paddle, then of course the paddle plan that you had actually might have to be changed because there's ice blocking your way. So make sure you have your backup options and how to get back or how to get around things if that happens. And of course in winter it gets darker much earlier. So where I am in Stockholm, for example, most of the day will be dark. You know, at 3 p.m. it might already be dark, depending on the time of year. So that means I need lighting in case it gets dark before I get back. Maybe I didn't even plan for a night paddle, but I got delayed. So in that case, having headlights and proper lighting, you know, a 360-degree light of some sort that warns other vessels that you're there, making sure you're visible. Even if there aren't that many vessels, there might be some. So make sure that you have that omnidirectional light and headlights. And I say headlights, headlamps, not one, but at least two. Because, you know, that first light might go out of battery exactly when you need it. That's happened to me quite a few times, and I'm always glad that I have spares with me. So a headlight and an extra headlight, that should definitely be part of it. Then of course, bringing something hot to drink, making sure that you're able to get warm and such, that's important. All right, so yeah, there are a couple of things that make winter kayaking trickier, and you certainly need to be aware of the risks and the dangers. But again, once you're out there, if you're a winter kayaker, you know what I know, what my paddling friends that paddle in winter know, that it is an awesome time of the year to paddle. Once you're out there, it can be absolutely beautiful. Just look at this water right here. In summer, there will be boats everywhere. Now it's just calm out there, and yeah, it's a good place to be paddling. All right, so thanks for watching, and I'll leave a link right here to those videos I mentioned about how I dress in winter while kayaking, and 20 easy tips to stay comfortable and safe while you're out paddling. So stay safe out there and happy paddles.